Nobody should. Nobody should.
Whenever it happens, we are going to be celebrating like the Munchkins did in Munchkinland, right?
When someone finally does it, they are going to get so much
TikTok influencers are threatening the president of the United States again. This is fine. We're gonna break down the latest disturbing content to come out of the Clock app and so much more. On today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across our media, our politics, and the internet, all from an independent perspective. Up first, guys, I've been gathering these videos and following this discourse on TikTok for a couple weeks now. It's getting crazy. It's getting unhinged on this app. And video after video after video where people are openly calling for the assassination of Donald Trump are getting millions of views, millions of likes. It's just openly stated almost every single day on this app, often tongue-in-cheek, but not really tongue-in-cheek. There's a whole discourse about like, so is someone gonna do it? And then they don't say what it is, but because of the discourse, everyone knows what it is, and it refers to killing the president. Yes, seriously. I mean, it's content that if you're not plugged into internet discourse might actually shock you. Take a look at this first video.
I'm not saying somebody should. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying anyone should. No, I'm not. Couldn't be me. You know what I mean? But if someone was going, I'm kidding, don't. I'm completely joking. Nobody should. Nobody should. You shouldn't. I shouldn't. Nobody should. Nobody should. That's all I've got to say. That's all I have to say. Just nobody should.
I kind of feel like you think somebody should. That's the vibe I'm picking up from this video, which has more than 8 million views and over 1 million likes. And I'm not the only one picking up his actual sentiment here. Let's look at some of the comments. Someone with good aim, please. A comment reads that has 140,000 likes. But if someone would, ... we listen and we don't judge. 105,000 likes. Nobody should ... go to jail for it. Another comment reads, this person with a Canada flag in their bio. 168,000 likes. I love that no context is needed. Skull emoji. 335,000 likes. Someone named Pastor Paul, and gosh, I hope that's a parody account, not a real pastor, wrote, remember, Jesus forgives. If someone did, you are forgiven. Another account wrote, someone named Mario could do the funniest thing ever. Skull emoji. Y'all, the kids are not all right. Something is wrong. Something is broken. This isn't normal. It's not normal to be so casually and flippantly talking about and cheering for the death of somebody you disagree with politically. That's unhinged, actually, and evil. And guys, I say this as somebody who, again, if you're a regular viewer will know, didn't support Trump. I supported the libertarian candidate. I agree with some things Trump does. I disagree with others, and I criticize them on this channel. But you will never catch me wanting someone dead just because they disagree with me politically. That's demonic. These people are also just not very bright. They really, what? Want President J.D. Vance? Because that's what you would get. And if anything, he's further right than Trump on a lot of issues. Plus, God forbid, I really don't want this to happen. If Trump were killed while in office, he'd probably get a huge upswell in sympathy and support. And so would the MAGA movement. So if you're a progressive young person, even just selfishly taking out morality from the equation, it's dumb to want this. Like, very dumb. Even the attempts on his life during the campaign, which makes, because there have been literal attempts that almost succeeded to kill this man, it's not jokes. You can't just claim it's jokes when you're talking like this, when it's in that context. That's not a laughing matter. That's serious as a heart attack. But so even that attempt that was thankfully unsuccessful led to a huge increase in support for Trump. It made a lot of people view him more positively than they did before. Imagine a successful attempt. Gosh, I, again, don't even want to imagine that. But my point is that these people aren't even doing basic political calculus. They're actually just deranged. And it's disturbing. And it wasn't just this one guy or the millions of people that liked his video. There's so much more. Here's one delightful woman explaining how she thinks the person who does it should be rewarded.
When someone finally does it, that person is going to be such a hero, right? Like Luigi, we love Luigi. But not a lot of people knew who that guy was before Luigi. Now the world knows who he is. Can you even imagine for the person that does that? They are going to get so much.
Ew. That feels homophobic, in addition to just being disgusting and deranged and immoral and evil. Now, meanwhile, many other influencers on TikTok are instead talking openly about how they plan to celebrate when someone finally does it. Take a look at yet another chilling viral video.
Whenever it happens, we are going to be celebrating like the Munchkins did in Munchkinland, right? Like, that's my plan. I don't know what your plan is, but when it happens, I am going to celebrate like they did in Munchkinland.
That video, 333,000 people liked it. There's another one that got more than 1 million views.
Another thing is, like, what do you guys think you're going to do the day that it happens? Like, I feel like we're kind of in a waiting game right now. Like, everyone's a little bit holding their breath or, like, waiting to see how this kind of plays out. But what do you think you're going to do the day that it finally happens? I know that I'm for sure calling the off work, calling my mom, getting drinks with my friends, trying to think what else. Probably will stimulate the economy and go shopping, buy myself whatever I want, like jumping around, singing, crying in the streets, like calling, texting everyone for real.
Okay, so what are we all doing when, what are we doing? What's the plan? What is everyone doing? Like, I've been thinking about, daydreaming about, like, what am I going to do? I think I'm going to throw a rager. I'm going to throw, like, the craziest party. And then when we find that it's, like, all of them. Like, that's even bigger. Not just the one, but, like, all.
A few lovely comments from these videos. Every time I play No One Mourns the Wicked, I fantasize about it. Good news! Exclamation mark. 24,000 people liked that comment. Seek help, y'all. Y'all need therapy and, honestly, probably Jesus in your life. Champagne bottle in hand, dancing in the street. No context needed at all. But yes, we will be having a party. Hey, so this is actually demonic. I'm kind of lost for words. I don't know how we get through to these young people. I don't know how we help them or reach them. They seem so far gone down this disturbing and unhinged extremist path that this app, in particular TikTok, has inculcated with its algorithm and with the echo chambers that it creates and the meme culture that it fosters, that I'm not sure they can be reached at this point. I think we may just at some point have to shift to stopping more people from falling into this line of thinking that is just, incompatible with liberal democracy. Just killing people when you disagree with them or when you lose an election. Many of these people probably think of themselves as pro-democracy, but they are out here acting like this in public in 4K. The math is not mathing, both on a logical level on every front, but also in terms of a basic moral calculus, which these people are just totally failing to accurately compute. What do you guys think? Are you even surprised by this stuff at this point? Or is it just kind of par for the course, sadly, in 2025? Let me know in the comments. Do hit that like button to reward my suffering, and make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. By the way, guys, before our next segment, just wanted to do an update on the whole Hasan Piker situation. I'm not going to dedicate another segment to him. Don't worry. We're keeping it moving. But apparently he was only banned from Twitch for 24 hours for one day for saying a sitting U.S. senator should be killed. That is wild. Remember, they have banned people permanently, like Stephen Bennell, Destiny, the streamer, got banned permanently in part because he called some trans activists subhuman. Now, I don't think you should speak about people that way, but it's definitely not as bad as calling for people to be killed. And yet he's permanently banned, and Hasan gets one day. Again, this is the thing for me. If these people did not have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. But that's the last thing I'll say about this story, for now at least. All right, now we're going to talk about Trump's address in front of Congress and the unhinged fallout and reaction to it from some people on the left. I watched the full speech this morning. I did not stay up and watch it last night, if I'm being so for real with y'all. A 9 p.m. start time? Yeah, I'm checked out of politics by that point in the night. But I watched it this morning. I did watch on 2X because, God, it's so annoying how every sentence people stop and clap for like 15 seconds. So if you were to watch that on normal speed, it would take so long to get through. But anyway, I watched the speech, have a lot of thoughts on it, saw the very lame and pathetic disruptions and protests from Democrats. We'll start there, then we'll talk about the substance of the speech. So just a couple minutes in, Al Green, a Democratic member of Congress, gets up and disrupts the speech and starts shouting in a truly pathetic display. Take a look at the clip.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant at Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Now, Trump had literally barely even started speaking and had certainly not said anything particularly controversial or inflammatory yet. But he was immediately disrupted with childish antics where this guy had to literally be removed by the Sergeant at Arms. How anyone thought that was like going to be a cute little thing for Democrats to do, like that was going to be a good look for them, is beyond me. But some people actually ate that up. Hasan Piker tweeted, "Every Democrat should be exactly like this. Respect to Al Green." Left-wing journalist Mehdi Hasan tweeted, "One by one, every Democrat should heckle like Green and be proudly thrown out by him." Stephen Bennell, aka Destiny, the left-wing streamer, tweeted a picture of Al Green and said, "More of this," and also wrote, "This isn't even a real State of the Union. It's just an effing campaign rally. The Dems should disrupt until every one of them is kicked out of Congress. This is effing absurd." So prominent progressive pundits thought he ate with that. Really thought he was like doing amazing. Whereas normal, sane people, even ones who aren't necessarily fans of Trump, thought it was a dumb, childish stunt that accomplished nothing. You couldn't even hear anything he was saying because he wasn't mic'd up. And just came across as petulant and childlike. And apparently that's how most Americans felt. Even CNN's flash polling, which is not like amazing exact polling, but gives you a general sentiment of how people felt, found almost everyone didn't like this.
Wanting to get reaction on Congressman Al Green's antics and being ejected, 80% of speech watchers said that the Democratic congressman's interrupting of Trump's speech was inappropriate. Only 20% of speech watchers thought what Green did was appropriate.
Now, I will point out that the sample of who tunes into the speech does tend to skew towards people of that party. So this was probably a more Republican sample than just the general population, but still, 80% is a strong figure. And I bet even a majority of independents and Democrats would find that behavior childish and obnoxious, not somehow brave and stunning. Like some of these Democratic members were like, I walked out.
I just came off the House floor. I could not stand one more second, tolerate one more second. There is no way that I could stay there for this address. It is insult to injury, the lies and the propaganda.
And it's like, congrats. Do you want a cookie? Like, okay, no one noticed or cared. Some of them also like wore pink or held up silly little looking signs. And I'm like, oh no, how will Trump ever recover? It's just, it's all kind of silly to me. Now, these speeches, the State of the Unions, and this one wasn't technically a State of the Union, but it was basically like the same thing. They do turn into these kind of partisan call-in responses where who are you going to stand and clap for this line or not becomes sort of a dumb, like political watcher game. And even in these speeches, traditionally, there are some points that a president will make that even the other side will stand up and clap for. So like there were a few things Biden said last year that actually Republicans got up and applauded, because sometimes they just say things that everyone should support, like, or call out extremely sympathetic people. And in this case, Trump called out a 13-year-old boy with terminal brain cancer who always dreamed of being a police officer, who they made an honorary member of the Secret Service. Very sweet, very cute story. And almost none of the Democrats stood or clapped for this child. I'm sorry, y'all, but that is such crazy partisanship. Like, you can't just applaud the 13-year-old kid with the brain cancer? It's not a political point. You're not even applauding Trump. You're celebrating the kid. I mean, they also didn't, for example, stand up and honor the parents of Laken Riley, the woman killed by an illegal immigrant. And I think they should, but at least that one is like, okay, well, we don't want to play into his partisan framing of the immigration issue or something. I can at least understand why some of them wouldn't do it. But y'all really can't stand for the kid with the cancer. Now, that's how anti-Trump we're going to be. Sorry, that's deranged. As for the speech itself, I'll say that I think Trump leaned into a lot of the 80-20 issues he has in his favor, or 70-30 issues, things that, at least at the surface level, most people agree with. He talked about securing the border. He talked about ending divisive, discriminatory DEI practices, about turning the page on wokeness, and a whole host of other things, keeping males out of women's sports, stuff that most common sense people would probably nod along to. But let's not kid ourselves that this was a flawless speech. I mean, you can Google a fact check of it and you will find many things that he said that were misleading or not true. It's kind of typical Trumpian fashion. And he made there's plenty of criticisms you can make, right? Without the childish antics, without the refusing to clap for the cancer kid, you can point out that he made factually false claims. Like he said, for example, that Biden had the worst inflation perhaps in American history. That's just objectively not true. It was pretty bad, but we've had significantly worse. He pushed this very misleading narrative about people over 150 years old who are collecting Social Security benefits. That's been debunked. There are some issues there with the outdated data in that system, but they automatically cut off payments to people at 115. Now, maybe it should be sooner than that, of course, but he's just very sloppy with a lot of the claims that he makes. And to be clear, it was a partisan speech. It was one that very explicitly crapped on Democrats and promoted himself and his political party, which is, at least historically, not the tone that is considered appropriate for these kinds of speeches. Though I think with politics, we are in kind of uncharted territory these days on a whole host of things. You could point out, and I certainly believe this, that a lot of the promises he made in this speech are simply unrealistic. He is not going to balance the federal budget like he promised, which, gosh, I hope I am wrong. If he did that, I would absolutely praise him for it. But he's pushing massive tax cuts, which, whether you support them or not, make it harder to balance the budget, and only supports some forms of spending cuts on like waste and fraud, but you could never actually balance the budget without cutting entitlements, without cutting Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, all this stuff that he says he doesn't want to touch. So it's just not realistic. He didn't get anywhere close last time, and there's no real reason to believe he will this time. There's more, of course, but I'm just saying, if you want to criticize Trump over this speech, there's plenty of material there. But why do they always have to do it in the most unhinged and dramatic and partisan ways imaginable? That's the part that I simply don't, and I don't think I ever will, understand. But what do you guys think? Did you watch the speech? Did you like it? And what did you make of the Democratic antics? Do let me know in the comments. And now we'll run through some quick hits and talk about a couple crazy stories that came across my desk in the last 24 hours. Up first, Andrew Tate sure sounds kind of guilty in an interview he just did with Candace Owens. Remember, this is the far-right influencer who has been both criminally and just generally accused of all sorts of various forms of harming women, and frankly is on video confessing to a lot of things that sound a lot like the things he's accused of doing. But the right-wing podcaster and YouTube star Candace Owens is very much in the tank for him and just hosted him on her podcast, wherein he made this interesting admission.
This is insane. And I mean, I guess you probably don't want to be in Florida anymore.
No, I don't.
It has
but
become a hot hub for neocons. I will say that.
The thing is, if I leave now, they're going to think I'm guilty of something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to stay right here. I am right here. You know what's funny? I'm such a reasonable man. I am truly not a hardhead like people think. If Ron would have called me privately and said, please just go to another state, you know what I would have said? No problem. I would have just left. I'm not a hard guy to deal with. If I'm really not welcome, I won't stay. I don't want to overstay a welcome. But you want to play these games? I'm right here in Miami. I'm right here in Miami. Come get me. Arrest me. Perp walk me. Put me on the news. Tell everyone I'm a human trafficker. You think I'm not versed? You think I'm not ready? I'm a Navy SEAL in this shit. Come get me, raid my house, take my stuff. You think I sleep with a phone full of evidence? You think I don't wipe my phone every night? You think I'm dumb? Come get me, arrest me. Let's do this all over again. I've done it for 4 years in Romania. You think I'm scared of your state jail after an Eastern European gulag? I'm staying right here until the case is concluded.
So to be clear, I don't know enough about the Florida criminal situation to get into the details, but I would certainly hope that like the Florida government had warrants to search his stuff, and nobody, however much I despise them, deserves to have their rights violated. So I'm not necessarily supporting searching his devices when he entered the state unless they had some sort of warrant or valid legal purpose for doing so. But I can't be the only one who picked up on him saying he wipes his phone every night so they're not going to find any evidence. What do you mean? What evidence? I can only speak for myself, but I have never wiped my phone. I'm not sure I would even really know how, and there's nothing I need to wipe. I love how Candace didn't even blink at that. Like, maybe it didn't register with her in the moment, but that's giving guilty to me. I don't know. It's not giving innocent. I love how his take is like, basically, I'm innocent and I don't do any crimes, but also I'm way too smart to get caught doing crimes. Which one is it? Look, the different cases against him are complicated and there are nuances there, and everyone deserves due process and a fair shake under the legal system, but I honestly don't understand how people can look at this person and come away with a positive impression whatsoever. Up next, left-wing Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett just dropped another interesting soundbite. Take a listen.
If you could tell Donald Trump anything tonight, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe.
This sitting Congresswoman actually just called the president Putin's hoe. Welcome to American politics, y'all. In 2025, this is what we deserve. This is the level of discourse we're at now. And to be clear, Trump has played a role in the corseting of our discourse. He says crazy and insulting things, but like, this is still wild to me. Really? Y'all have to sink to his level and then some with this kind of thing? And from the progressive perspective, isn't this kind of offensive to the sex worker community to be using hoe as an insult? I thought y'all were all about positivity and reclaiming that and ending stigma. Make up your mind. And surely you can criticize Trump's obsequious approach to Putin and Russia without calling him a hoe. As a member of Congress standing in a government building fresh after an address for Congress. Gosh, the standards are not even on the floor. They're in the basement now, babe. They're in the basement, and they're excavating to new lows every day. I'm also curious, how do you think the media would react? How much outrage would there be if a Republican member of Congress called Jasmine Crockett George Soros's hoe or something? To be clear, I would consider that really gross conduct and reprehensible, and there'd be outrage about it for good reason. But she really, I don't think, will catch much flack from mainstream media or her own side for speaking like this about a sitting president, because again, the standards they're not in the room with us anymore. Up next, Texas A&M just banned drag shows from their campus. The Dallas Express reports that the Texas A&M System Board of Regents passed a resolution banning drag shows across all 11 universities. The regents resolve that university presidents must take immediate action to cancel any upcoming drag show events. The board finds that it is inconsistent with the system's mission and core values of its universities, including the value of respect for others, to allow special event venues of the universities to be used for drag shows that involve biological males dressing in women's clothing, wearing exaggerated female makeup, and or exaggerated prosthetics meant to parody the female body type, and that are open to the public, involve sexualized, vulgar, or lewd conduct, and involve conduct that demeans women. Yeah, so this is unconstitutional. This is censorship. It's a violation of the First Amendment because these are public universities, taxpayer funded, so they're bound by the First Amendment, and they can't censor student groups because they find their art or speech or events offensive. Now, I would think they could probably require 18 and up admitted to those events, and I would support that because I don't think kids should be going to sexualized drag shows. But if adult college students want to have those events, you can't stop them as the government and at public facilities because they hurt your fifis, because they're offensive to women. Okay, that's your opinion. And in free speech, people get to say and do things that offend others. This same logic could be used to block transphobic events where they talk about keeping women's sports for females and other things. If it hurts people's feelings or demeans trans people, it's like, this is a very dangerous game to play. And this is Republican snowflakery. This is red state social justice warriors doing their big ones and adopting left-wing tactics in the opposite direction. But it's still unconstitutional. It's still censorship. And look, if you find drag offensive to women or what have you, that's your opinion and you're free to criticize it, but you're not free to censor it. And stories like this just really bother me because I don't really expect better from the left, from the social justice people on campus. That's their thing. They like to shout down and censor people. But Republicans and red states and kind of that side of the political spectrum claims to support free speech, but then some of them still try stuff like this. That to me is the height of hypocrisy and is absolutely unacceptable and embarrassing. All right, everybody, that'll be it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in and joining me. Please do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button before you go. And do comment with your thoughts. I do take the time to read the comments and I always love hearing what you guys have to say. And we'll talk again real soon.